So, and also, of course, welcome up here to the panel. And I will start with handing over to Sheila Khama, who is with us online, I think, on the role of community engagement in enhancing the social and environmental performance of extractive projects.
Yes, thank you very much, and greetings from Botswana in Southern Africa. I wanted to start first by just addressing the notion of community, because though the term literally appears self-evident, when applied to the notion of resource development, then it isn't so straightforward. So in my mind, communities mean several things. If you take communities from the perspective of resources belonging to a nation state, then a country's entire population is the community. If you think of the community as those in the vicinity of the project and the resource that is being developed, then community becomes localized and is defined by the footprint and the impact physically of the project. If you think also of community in the broader sense, which is to say, those who are found by the company developing the resources, and those who then, for reasons of perceiving opportunities, then come as part of the influx seeking to benefit from the development of the resource, then the community expands. If you think of the community also in terms of those at the consumer end of the project, then you have another potential definition. So I wanted to just be clear that though I shall discuss community in the context of the confines of the footprint, I have no illusions. There are many different communities with a vested interest in the responsible governance of resources and in the sustainable development of the resources. So let me start then by trying to answer the question. What is the role of community engagement in enhancing social and environmental performance? There are several roles that community engagement plays. The first is that from the perspective of governance and social risk, the engagement of communities does two things. For one, through engagement of communities, we have a better understanding of the impact socially that the project is likely to have on those in its vicinity. This understanding then enables us, one, to mitigate the risk of any socially unintended consequences. Secondly, it allows us at the planning stage when we design the project to include the voices of those with knowledge of the social environment, the physical environment, in the way that we execute, so that the impact that we have on them and that they have on the project is a positive and not a disruptive one. Importantly, the engagement allows us to be able to design the project in a way that ensures the impact on the community is a positive one, and that the community sees the project as something from which they stand to benefit rather than something from which they may suffer harm. It is this social license that stabilizes the investment environment such that the resources can be exploited. It is this engagement and the outcomes of it that ensures that extractive projects can do more harm than less harm and more good. It is also this assurance that creates the possibility for what is now known as responsible procurement, because it is the evidence of our engagements, the proof of partnership and our ability to validate that through engagement, that gives those who consume the resources the assurance that the resources they consume were procured responsibly. So there is not just a social element or a human rights element, there is also a commercial element which offers a premium based on proof that the engagement with communities can stand to scrutiny. But engagement alone is not enough. It is important that when we engage communities, that the basis of the engagement is up to accepted standards, which is to say, we engage based on the principle of prior informed consent. Prior informed consent assumes that the opportunity exists as part of the engagement process to inform those that are being engaged, to ensure that they are informed not just about the issues, but the implications, and that their consent to the development and the manner of development is based on this understanding. Because in the absence of that, the engagement is asymmetric and cannot stand to scrutiny in terms of the power, the legitimacy, but also the credibility of the communities that we engage. And it is on this basis that project developers then acquire what is called the social license to operate. This social license, especially in today's days, is critical as we seek to procure minerals for clean energy. Our failure to engage communities, our failure to prove that we have engaged responsibly as equal partners will be the gap between the world's aspirations to transit to clean energy or the failure to do so. As such, it is not only just a governance issue. In some cases, it is also a legal requirement and becomes therefore a compliance requirement, a condition precedent for licensing. For governments and companies that undertake project development, it is also a basis for containing social risk. And as such, it is increasingly a requirement by financiers for project developers to prove this engagement. And without it, there are two risks. Quite apart from the social risk and risk of disruption, there is also the risk of failure to procure project finance. There is also the risk that in the event of procuring project finance, the cost on the project financiers is very high. The result of which is that the fiscal receipts to developing countries reduces based on those costs. And so whether one looks at it from a moral perspective, a commercial perspective, the importance of community engagement has never been greater. I wanted to speak briefly about the physical environment, because the question speaks to the social and environmental issues. The importance of engaging around the physical environment is multifold. First of all, as part of the environmental impact assessment, an understanding of the potential conflicting uses for other resources, notably land, water, and forestry is critical. And without engaging communities, our understanding of where there might be conflict and our ability to then contain that conflict is hampered. On the other hand, the importance of understanding the cultural aspects of the physical environment and the importance of avoiding any damage to heritage sites is essential. And we cannot do that without engaging the communities who have knowledge of these matters and can guide those who design projects to ensure that these archaeological sites are not endangered. A second important thing is overall indigenous knowledge of the environment, the plants, the animals in their use. If we don't engage communities, we are unlikely to be able to understand this environment and approach it in a way that protects and enhances indigenous knowledge and adds to the science and understanding of the ecosystem. And we cannot protect the ecosystem without first knowing its component parts. And a huge part of that knowledge sits in the minds and history of indigenous communities. On the other hand, our ability to navigate options for livelihoods has to do with our engaging the communities, understanding their prevailing way of life, and ensuring that to the extent that there's any relocation of people, that it is done in a way that gives regard to the continuity and minimum disruption of ways of living. As such, the role of community engagement in enhancing social and environmental is embedded primarily in the understanding that this engagement must take place at the onset of project design and not after. The timing of this community engagement is almost as vital as the component parts and the manner in which we undertake engagement. If the timing is off, our ability to ensure the necessary social safeguards will be compromised. That's all I have to say on the subject matter for now. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for your very good words. I hope you will engage with us and with our work in the future to come. It will mean a lot for us to learn more from you. And now I would like to ask Tunde to present the African mining vision.
Okay, I would like to stand up. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here again to probably, I will have started from here before the other last 2 days. But all the same, it's always better than never. My job this morning looks very simple. I have to talk about African Mining Vision, which we call AMV. AU, we used to know it as OAU, it was established in 1963. It's one of the oldest continental body. But with time, the African leader decided by 1980, set a process of changing the name. They call it Lagos Plan of Action, changing the name to Organization of African Unity to African Union, which came to being on 26th of May, 2001. So there are several initiatives that come from which, one of the last one is Agenda 2063, which I will have cause to mention as we go by. These are some of the initiatives that has developed in African Union over time. From African Productivity Capability Initiatives, 2004, African, as you can read it, but the focus of today is that of 2009, which is interestingly came up the same time with UNFC. Now, African Mining Vision essentially focuses on African mineral resources development, because this is a continent that hosted between 35 to 40% of world resources and largely unexplored. So certainly Africa is the next frontier. So always in a very huge country with over 1.4 billion population, and 60% of such population are indeed youth. So there is need to see how we can translate these resources to industrialization. Now, these are the fundamentals of African Mining Vision. Essentially, the goals: transparent, equitable, and optimal exploitation of mineral resources to underpin broad-based sustainable growth and social economic development. Knowledge-driven African mining sector that catalyzes and contributes to the broad-based growth and development of and is fully integrated into single African markets. Just the way Europe is half single Africa, which we are in the process of doing that. That is what AFTA is all about. The plan action to back it up actually set the 2011 and is currently under the review. These are the linkages. We have the downstream linkages into mineral beneficiation, very critical to Africa. Manufacturing, upstream linkages into mineral, mining capital, goods, consumable, and services industries. Side stream linkages into infrastructure, power, logistics, communications, water, and skill development. Technology, R&D, research and development is key to any development anywhere in the world. Mutually beneficials. We don't want to be shortchanged on God-given resources. Neither are we expecting to anybody doing trade in Africa to be a loser. It must be a win-win situation. So beneficial partnership between the states, the private sector, civil society, women's society, name it, and all stakeholders. A comprehensive knowledge of, we need to know what we have. If you don't know what you have, you don't even know how to bargain. Now, a sustainable and well-governed mineral sector that effectively garners and deploys resource rent that is safe, healthy, gender-friendly, ethnic inclusive, environmental and friendly and socially responsible, the so-called ESG, is fully integrated. The community which Sheila is talking about now must benefit from God-given resources. A mineral sector that has become a key component of a diversified, vibrant, and globally competitive industrializing African economy. This is our responsibility. This generation of Africa must ensure that takes place. A mineral sector that's helped establish a competitive African infrastructure platform through the maximization of the propulsive local and regional linkages. Now, a mineral sector that optimizes husband African finite mineral. Mineral is not exhaustible. It may take time, but it's finite. Endowment, and that is diversify, incorporating both high-value minerals, metals. Few years back, nobody talked about lithium, but everybody knows what lithium is talking today. Whether it's high or low metal, we are interested. It has to be documented using UNFC, both commercial and small scale. We are interested in all deposits. We are not profit-driven. We must know what we have because criticality is not stable. It changes with time. Mineral sector that has enhanced the potential of artisanal and small. This is very key in Africa because of the resources. We don't have much money, but we have talent and we have the mind and we have the knowledge. So a mineral sector that major players is vibrant, competitive, national, continental, international capital, and commodity. We are ready to do business with the world. Now, AU have organs, how they operate. There is what we call Conference of Ministers responsible for mineral resources. Comrade 123, 2009, 11, and 13. Then there is a key one, Specialized Technical Committee, which is called STC. These take decisions on behalf of anything that is mineral resources. As I told you the other time, mineral in Africa means everything, the three sets of matters. Now, African Mineral Development Center, this is my own organization where we are working from. We are the one coordinating all the policies and how to go about it. There is also private sector. AWIMA is the woman aspect of it. Gender, civil society is key in sustainable development in Africa. Concluded instruments. This is not, no fooling around. Facts and figure. We have the Geological Mineral Information System, GMIS, which is my key portfolio, which I drive now. African Minerals Governance Framework, Private Sector Compacts, and of course, African Mineral and Energy Resources Classification and Management System, and Pan-African Reporting Code, which I spoke largely 2 days ago. These are already concluded. There is no fooling around about it. An AU commodity strategy. Now, in progress right now in Africa, we have small-scale, artisanal and small-scale mining strategy, African model, mineral laws that is accepted continentally because of data sharing is a big problem where there's no unified law. The green mineral strategy is being developed by my agency, AMDC. By June, we should have it in place, go through all the processes in Africa, and then on business we are, then regional mineral value chains. Now, AMDC was established in 2013 by what we call by head of states. We call the Conference of Parties. Now, to support the member states in implementing the policies and program for realization of African mining vision. The center was first located in ECA. John is here. Yeah, that is where he hosted. Later, it was moved in 2019 to African Union, and that is where we are now. AMDC is a transiting journey to Guinea-Conakry is our final situation, but because of the political instability there, we remain at this for now. Operational instrumentation is ratification is in progress. Now, these are the work streams that we have in AMDC. We have the policy and governance, we have the geology and mineral information, we have the industrialization and trade, we have artisanal and small scale, which is very key in Africa. Most mine in Africa, major players are ASM. Then we have the African Mineral Energy Resource Center, African Mineral Resources and Energy Classification System, which is AMREC. Then the knowledge and reporting and communication advocacy. These are the, you see, we have to do all this because these are the issues we are facing in Africa today. Environment. The first picture is Niger Delta. In my own country, Nigeria, where I come from. You need to see the level of devastation. People mines and get away. Who will allow that? Look at the acid rain. All these pictures are within the continent of Africa. This is not acceptable because we have just this planet. What is happening in Europe is affecting Africa. Whatever happens in Africa will affect Europe. If you must guide the planet, we must have the understanding and work together. I always want to share this slide anywhere I have the opportunity of presenting. There are 5 main stages along the mineral value chain between the upper stream, which is from exploration side to the marketing. We have the minerals and exploration, exploration, evaluation things. Gold or any mineral is fine, wherever you find it. You don't need to beg anybody for that. If you need it, you must come there. So we are not begging for that. If you want to do anything in Africa that is fine in Africa, you must come there, whether you like it or not. Now, the second one, that anywhere you find mineral is where it's going to mine, you are going to mine it. You don't need to beg anybody to that. You can't mine remotely, you have to come on the ground there. Nobody is begging for that. What we are negotiating about is number 3, which is midway. The midway is the strategic, as we call mineral in Africa, and critical, what you call in Europe. The processing must take place in Africa, at least the early stages. Let me give a very simple analogy. Look at bauxite. Bauxite need only it. You don't need chemical to translate it to alumina. I was the director of the biggest laboratory in Nigeria for 5 years. I see lithium every day. Some of you have never seen it once because that is my job for the last 5 years before I joined UN. So what I'm saying is that this thing is possible to start the process in Africa. There are other aspects we may not have the technology, the mineral production, and then the technology aspect. We consider that to you for now. But out of the 5, we must take 3 because God has given us 35 to 40% mineral endowment of the world. We are not, that is where we stand. So it's a win-win situation. Because the first 2, if you must mine in Africa, you must come to Africa. But what the practice of being taking things out raw It's not acceptable and it's not sustainable. The planet belongs to all of us. Hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tunde. It's really impressive, all the things you have achieved, and it looks like you have a good plan forward. Now I would like to welcome Rabiah Adawiyah Hussein from the Energy and Minerals Division, ASEAN Secretariat. And he's going to be with us she is going to be with us online, talking about how ASEAN Minerals Cooperation strategies fostering sustainability and resilience in promoting the region as a minerals investment destination. Welcome, Rabiah.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Good morning from the headquarters of ASEAN in Jakarta, Indonesia. Thank you for inviting the ASEAN Secretariat to brief you all on the ASEAN Minerals Cooperation strategies. My name is Rabiah Hussein. I'm Senior Officer of the Energy and Minerals Division. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. ASEAN is a region rich in mineral resources. It holds significant potential as a reliable supplier of critical minerals to meet the rising demand from low carbon technology, including clean energy technologies and digitalizations. Several ASEAN member states have a long history of mineral production, while others are emerging producers. Most of them possess prospectivity for minerals that are forecasted to be in demand to respond to the carbon reduction policies such as cobalt, copper, lithium, nickel, and rare earth. Next slide, please.
Rabiah, just so that you know, there's a time delay and we see the slides come up straight away, but I think you don't. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So this is a snapshot of the minerals development prospectivity of the ASEAN region across the 10 ASEAN member states. The member states such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand are among ASEAN's major producers of minerals at the world scale of production levels. Indonesia, for example, is a world-ranked mining nation of tin, nickel, copper, gold, and bauxites. In 2016, the country produced 80% of mined tin global productions, which is the third largest producers, and then 9.5% of nickel and 3.6% of copper. Indonesia's global mineral reserves are ranked the second for tin, fifth for the gold, and then sixth for the nickel and bauxite. For Malaysia, the country produces quite a number of mineral commodities such as bauxite, gold, iron ore, manganese, and was among the largest global producer of bauxite in 2015. The country also hosts a strategically significant processing plant for rare earth elements, utilizing concentrates from a mine in Western Australia. While the Philippines holds up to a quarter share of the world's nickel production and 60% of the world's total reserves of nickel, and then Thailand is the world leading producers of feldspats and gypsum. The emerging producers of ASEAN member states are Myanmar, Vietnam, as well as Laos, PDR, and Cambodia. Myanmar and Vietnam are among the world miners producers, while Myanmar is one of the world's major producers of rare earths and the second largest producers of tin. Vietnam is a major world producer of bismuth and tungsten and has also been assessed as a prospective for copper. Vietnam itself hosts the world's largest rare earth reserves, although production currently is still small. Laos PDR is a geologically prospective country and produces various mineral commodities, including copper, gold, silver, and potash. Cambodia's mineral production, mainly for infrastructure construction and buildings, such as cement, gravel, sand, and stone, among others. The other two ASEAN member states, which possess prospectivity in reprocessing, refining, and trading hub, are Brunei Darussalam and Singapore. Brunei Darussalam has principal extractive resources from oil and gas and has the capacity and potential for mineral processing. This is utilizing its abundant energy resources. And then plus they also have a large scale fertilizer, ammonia and urea, and hydrogen production using the natural gas as a feedstock. Singapore, although this is not a mineral producer country, it has a gold refining and trading hub for the mineral sector and hosts, along with Indonesia, major gold refineries in the ASEAN region. Next slide, please. So looking at the prospectivities of the region and the opportunities of the minerals intensive future to respond to the global low carbon transitions, the ASEAN Minerals Cooperation Action Plan, or we call it AMCAP 3 Phase 2 for the period of 2021-2025, is directed to boost domestic and international investment in all components of the minerals value chain, while also adopting sustainable minerals development principles and implement leading practices. We aim to capture additional value in supply chains where in the ASEAN region can become a potentially reliable supplier of critical minerals that diversifies global supply of raw materials. Under the AMCAP 3 Phase 2, the cooperation is directed to promote the region as a mineral investment destination and build sustainable investment in all stages of the mineral value chain, commencing with explorations. Next slide, please. So let me highlight you our current major works to promote the region as a sustainable minerals investment destination. As we aim to promote the region as a mineral investment destination, starting with minerals exploration, it is important for us to improve in the quality as well as availability of pre-competitive geoscience data and minerals development and production data to potential investors. And then packaging the data set into promotional attractive content, which will effectively attract investor attention. So we thus working on the development of the ASEAN Minerals Exploration Strategy, version 1. This seeks to provide a coordinated set of strategies for improving geological prospectivity in ASEAN from the perspective of the investor. This includes a specific plan to collect and process the data that underpins the information base for marketing exploration in ASEAN. Such data are intended to be made accessible via the ASEAN Minerals Information System. The strategy itself has been finalized in January this year and currently under editorial process for publications. Next slide, please. ASEAN aims to develop and adopt a set of regional principles for sustainable minerals development to underpin the progressive development of a more comprehensive SMD framework and an ASEAN mining vision. We seek to pursue mineral development that is more sustainable and expect to address evolving global and community standards for environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable mineral development. We also recognize that a strong SMD framework is necessary to ensure high standards of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG performance by project operators and their contractors. It is also necessary to drive greater engagement of communities and also allow ongoing access to markets through responsible sourcing of mineral products. So with that, we are currently working towards the adoption of the ASEAN principle of sustainable mineral development, or we call it the ASEAN SMD principles. This will help the region to underpin the progressive development of a more comprehensive SMD framework and an ASEAN mining vision. We are now working with UNECE to develop stakeholders engagement plan towards adopting the regional SMD principle. And then we welcome collaboration with more partners for project focus on the development of the ASEAN mining vision. Next slide, please. In terms of information system, we are looking at improving the quality and availability of pre-competitive geoscience data, as well as mineral development and production data of ASEAN by enhancing the ASEAN Minerals Information System, or we call it AMIS. Through the AMIS enhancement project, we plan to improve the infrastructure, which is including the system design and maintenance of the AMIS, We also plan to establish arrangement for data collection, provision, and update, and provide information and mineral industry specific data that will drive investment in minerals development. So preparation for this AMIS enhancement project is ongoing, and we also welcome collaboration with more partners on specifically on the AMIS content development. Next slide, please. To promote leading practices in all aspects of minerals governance, we are currently working on improving ASEAN capacities in minerals governance. Improving governance capacity is the highest priority identified by the ASEAN member states for capacity building, as this will attract investment and ensure responsibly produced and responsibly sourced mining products. We just finalized in March this year the work program on improving ASEAN capacities in minerals government with 3 focus areas for capacity buildings. Those are minerals, minerals development policy, minerals regulation and oversight, and also the sustainable minerals development. We are currently looking at designing and implementing activities to implement this work program up to year 2025. Next slide, please. So this is the road ahead of the ASEAN Minerals Cooperation sector in fostering sustainability and resilience toward promoting our region as a sustainable minerals investment destinations. Following the adoption of the ASEAN Minerals Cooperation Action Plan Phase 2 in October 2021, 4 major works which we are currently working on that, which I just previously mentioned to you, is that the ASEAN Minerals Exploration Strategy, the adoption of the ASEAN SMD principles, enhancement of the ASEAN mineral information system, and the capacity building program to improve mineral governance. Following this, we are now working on the we will work on the preparation to broaden promotion outreach, and then launch the enhanced AMIS, and then broaden the stakeholders engagement, as we are currently mainly on the government to government basis, our cooperation now. So the next year we plan to undertake also a midterm review for the current action plan, while at the same time develop the ASEAN mining vision. All this will inform the development of the next AMCAP, or the next regional action plan, as well as to provide inputs to the ASEAN vision post 2025. The ASEAN vision post 2025 is the vision which covers all cooperation sectors of the ASEAN, of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So with this, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rabiah, for this very important contribution. And now the time has come to Ulises. Now it's your turn to enter the floor. And you're going to present Mexico ICE-SRM, Platform for Collaboration and Knowledge Sharing on Resource Management.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The last Wednesday, I present the motivations and the drivers for the different stakeholders in Mexico and Latin America related with the sustainable resource management, especially in the commitments related with the 2030 agenda. Today, I'm going to present some activities that the ICE-SRM in Mexico and Latin America we are doing. First, under the criteria of the designation and the terms of reference for the ICE-SRMs, our activities are focused in policy support, technical advice, consultation, education, training, dissemination, and other critical activities for stakeholders. This is very important because these critical activities for stakeholders, there are some expectations from the society, some expectations from different stakeholders in favor to identify what kind of activities is possible to implement in order to reinforce the sustainability in the extractive industries and the energy sector as well. Taking into consideration the different documents, UNECE and UNRMS documents in minerals, petroleum, renewable, injection projects, solar, wind, anthropogenic, All of these documents are important in order to develop our activities. Our main focus is with the federal governments, subnational governments, national oil companies, and also the private sector in industry with different activities with them. From training, diagnosis, roadmaps, advice, assessment, even certification, that is one of the requirements from the different stakeholders to certify that the activities in favor of the 2030 agenda is possible to identify and to certify it. Some of the activities, or many of the activities, is with the parliament. In the parliament of Mexico, in the lower chamber, we're trying to analyze with them what kind of the policies and modifications in the law is possible to implement UNECE and UNRMS in favor of the 2030 agenda. Another kind of activities, now we are working with the mining sector, running a pilot test, testing UNECE and UNRMS. Related with the national governments, they are more interesting to apply and to identify what from activities is possible to implement in favor of the 2030 agenda, taking into consideration standards like UNFC and UNMS is the way to do it. The main interest from the subnational governments is to attract investment in the energy and the natural resources in this part. Interest from investors, interest for the donor countries. This is the reason are the drivers from the some subnational governments to implement and to test some specific standards. The municipalities also, they are interesting to identify what could be the benefits to apply these standards, especially in the interaction with the SDG 7 and the linkage with another sources, for instance, 6, water, 11, communities and cities in this part, and also the SDG 2, hungry, agricultural activities. What could be the linkage between energy, water, and food? This kind of the things now we are having are raising the interest from some municipalities in this part. In this regard, UNECE and UNRMS offers this opportunity at this part. Related with the national oil companies, or the companies in this part, electricity, oil and gas, and even lithium. In Lithium MX is a new company in Mexico that is in charge to develop the evaluation and assessment of the resources in favor to develop the future projects of lithium. Now, together with the CLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America, and the ICE-SRM, we are trying to identify the synergies and activities with this company in favor to use UNECE and UNRMS to reinforce the 2030 agenda in this part. Now the collaboration and MOUs with universities and research centers. Different universities, mainly in the activities in earth science, geologists, geophysics, mechanical engineers, petroleum engineers, they are interested to learn what is the activities or the experience to reinforce in the matricula, in the curriculum, the use of the UNECE and UNRMS. This is very important for the future generations. The young people, they understand extraordinarily good what is UNECE and UNRMS, and they are able to adapt and to understand and to apply better all of these projects in this part. Also, we're working with some associations, industrial associations, like the Petroleum Engineers of Mexico. We recently created the Energy Transition and Sustainability Committee. The main of the activities in this committee will to understand and to apply some tools in the oil and gas industry to test UNECE and UNRMS. In the industry as well. Now some companies, oil and gas companies, they want to do or to apply some decarbonization and sustainability roadmaps. Instead to use a general activities, they want to test UNECE and UNRMS as tools to define this decarbonization and sustainability roadmaps in different activities. Finally, we're participating in different seminars and workshops in the parliament, in the national and subnational governments, in associations and universities. All of them are interested to understand what kind of activities is possible to apply to reinforce the 2030 agenda. Properly, and to do properly is possible to do with UNECE and UNRMS. Next steps is increase our activities in Latin America with different stakeholders, with different countries, and also to interact with other areas in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in North America, in order to identify the best practices and interlinkage with them. Conclude our projects. Most of them, we are starting these projects. We signed some MOUs with them. Now our next step is try to develop and to conclude these projects, and also obviously to interact with the different working groups in the EGRM with the UNECE in order to reinforce this. I would like to finalize my participation with some words. I take some words from Sigur. A country with resources is a privilege. As a privilege is a sustainable resource management. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulises. It's great work you do. And now I would like to give the floor to Francis Wall, talking about UK ICE-SRM, a proposal for advancing circular economy, resource servitization, and international collaboration. Welcome, Francis.
Thank you very much. Good day to everybody. And so what I'm going to talk about for the last talk in this slot is a centre with a small c. So we're not an official UNECE International Centre of Excellence, but in this big research programme from the UK, we've been contributing to the UNECE expert group on resource management activities. And we're now in discussions, I think I'm allowed to say, with Harry and Charlotte and colleagues about whether we might formalise this some way to formalise the UK's contribution here. So I'm going to say some words about this National Interdisciplinary Circular Economy Research Programme, which has the nice acronym NICER. That's how we know it. It's a big investment driven by our Department of Environment in the UK, £30 million, across a set of materials flows, brings together for 4 years, and we're halfway through, 34 universities and over 64 co-investigators in the programme. So I'm at the University of Exeter, so I'm one of the co-investigators and I lead one of the centres. So our work is divided up into centres along certain flows, and we've identified 4 or 3 centres and the coordinating hub as being particularly relevant to the work here of the UNECE, and various of those have already been contributing. So I'm going to say a little bit more about that. And the idea is that we can bring those together and formalise how we work with the UNECE. So what are we doing then? So you will have seen in Eva Marquis' presentation about our Cornwall case study of the UNRMS, we took that list of 12 principles and muddled it all around to create this diagram, where we can turn those 12 principles into the segments on here and talk about environment, social and governance that all the mining companies know about. And then we bring in circular economy, which can bring in some new things for them. And then you can see those facilitating principles down the bottom. So in the NICER programme, then, what we are dealing with is research into the circular economy, 4 principles that I have put there. So I think they're the service orientation principle, the comprehensive resource recovery, value addition, we've just been hearing about that, very important to the African countries, and circularity as a whole. So those 4 principles is what the research that we're doing speak to, and we can translate our research into help with the work of the UNECE. Okay. So this is all about circular economy, and we've heard a lot about circular economy during the meeting here this week. It seems to have been a particular keyword. When we talk about circular economy, this is one of my favorite diagrams. It's from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and they are a really good organization in translating the ideas and principles of circular economy into really practical explanations that are easy to read and understand. So I would recommend a visit to their website if you'd like to know more about circular economy in general. This is their butterfly diagram. The linear economy goes straight down the middle of the butterfly, straight down its body and out the bottom to waste. And what we want to do in circular economy is create the wings. So we can ignore the green because that's the bio side, and we're in the materials side. So to create those wings, what we want to do is make as many of those smaller circles as possible. The smaller the circle, the higher the value that's kept. Be efficient with your demand, keep things in use, sell them. Then next step down, remanufacture them. As you see, you go down, making more and more alterations to the materials until finally you go into the loop of last resort, as I call it, by catching those materials by recycling. And we've heard quite a lot about that this week. But really, those other rings of the butterfly are really important. And across the NICE program, we have a multitude of researchers in many disciplines, from social sciences to engineering to chemistry to business to geology even, working to actually make that circular economy research. So we start right from the beginning. And I think the other really important point about circular economy, it's what you do on the inbound in that butterfly body when you're mining, processing, manufacturing, selling, that makes the real difference as to whether you can create the wings of the butterfly to create your reverse loops. So that's the research then in NICE. And our research can certainly inform the UNRMS, including and very much the UNFC. And we're very pleased to do that. And not only do we help it's useful to the UNECE, but it's good for us too, because we're always asked to give impact from our research, who's listening, who's it useful to. And so that really helps us in the NICE program too. So some flashes then of just some points on the NICE hub, which the website is there, cehub.org. They're gathering case studies and examples from the work that we do all across the program. So if you want to see some new things about circular economy and some of the latest good practice and research, just click on the hub and that will take you out to all of the other centres. And I gave a name check there to Peter Hopkinson and Fiona Charnley. I think they've both been panel members on side events and various workshops for the UNECE already. And then here is the Construction Minerals Centre. And Julia's over there on the far side, Julia Stegman, there we are, give you a wave. She's already very much involved in UNECE and UNFC. She's part of the FutureAM programme, looking at recycling and good practices for construction minerals. And I put up this just flash from their website, from the technology challenge part, because you can see this keywords like design and material processing. These are all the inbound things that we must do in order to create those reverse loops. So that's that one. And here is the circular metals. So they're the major metals, steel and aluminium. Zhongyun Fan is the principal investigator. He talked at a side event recently for one of the workshops. And this is talking to the servitization models we hear a lot about. So there's pretty pictures there. You can see the cracks in the pictures of a metal before electropulse treatment. And then they use that treatment to anneal the cracks with the idea that you could do this while metal is still in use in a bridge or something. So you can prolong the life and stay on that tightest circle of the butterfly. So these are just some examples of the kind of research. And in the centre I'm in Metfatech, then we're creating a roadmap for the whole value chain of technology metals. That's the critical raw materials. Lots of interdisciplinary research there. That includes the British Geological Survey. So as a shout out, there's Tom Bide, who's been doing things here. I think Karen Hanghui is indisposed. Oh no, here she is in time at the back. Hello to Karen, there we are, BGS just arriving at the moment. And of course, this is where our Cornwall case study. So we really start from mining in Metfatech, and Eva's here this morning and you saw her earlier in the week. And this is really kind of what started, was very helpful in our links with the UNECE. Right, so that's studies. And then we've gone on from that with a small grant from the UK government to think about, well, we've had some experience, what next? And first of all, we stayed right at home where I am in the Camborne School of Mines at the University of Exeter, and we reviewed our own teaching materials. So this is a new Bachelor of Engineering degree in mining engineering. It's an apprenticeship for people working in mining all over the world. And the more pretty colour segments there are on those diagrams made by my colleague Kate Smith, the more UNRMS and sustainable development topics are included in each square is a module. And if there's a little ring, it talks specifically about the sustainable development goals. And only one module, which would be the one I lead, actually talks about the UNRMS. We've had Harry talking to us about that. But you can see this first mapping shows that we can check that and develop that through our courses and talk to other people about how they can do the same if they like. And then we've been doing some pilot studies. So we've had a go with the RMS in Cornwall. We liked it. Who else might like to do it? We've been talking to colleagues in the last month or two in Zambia, Indonesia, Canada, and Namibia. We found it's new to pretty much everyone, but they're curious to know more about it. We hope our films that we showed earlier will be useful. And give a name check here to my colleagues at the Copperbelt University in Zambia, who really liked the idea a lot. And I think I hear from Tunde, they were already talking about the idea. And so while we were here, they were there having a workshop in Lusaka this week about whether they can be maybe the next case study of the UNRMS for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Francis. Impressive work you do. So are there any interventions from the floor? Igor?
Я бы хотел немного рассказать про Международный центр передового опыта, который первый был создан по инициативе Европейской экономической комиссии ООН в 2021 году в Москве при Московском государственном университете. Деятельность центра направлена на продвижение целей устойчивого развития до 2030, в том числе за счет согласования связующих документов между классификациями разных стран и создания условий для продвижения РК ООН и СУР ООН в регионах деятельности Центра компетенций, включая страны Центральной Азии. Одна из главных задач этой работы – создание различных требований и рекомендаций, обеспечивающих использование UNECE, связующих документов для привлечения в добывающую отрасль и включая, конечно, критические минералы, которым отводится большая роль. Для такой работы привлекается большое количество государственных органов, частных инвесторов, центральные банки различных стран и другие финансовые институты, включая биржи, банки и так далее. Это вот как раз та работа, которую мы обсуждали вчера по предложению Сигурда. Вот она уже реализуется в рамках Центра компетенции, ну, по крайней мере, московского. Одним из позитивных примеров развития центра является работа по взаимному признанию классификации запасов России и Китая, которая смогла начаться только когда появились связующие документы двух стран с РК ООН. И в этом мы видим базовую роль РК ООН в продвижении классификации. Кроме того, в 2022 году Центром компетенции начата работа по сотрудничеству с коллегами из Беларуси, Таджикистана, Узбекистана, Южноафриканской Республики в области гармонизации подходов к классификациям запасов полезных ископаемых и развития экспертного сообщества, также на базе РК ООН. При непосредственном участии Центра компетенции подготовлен связующий документ, который вчера докладывал Александр Шпильман. Если можно, следующий слайд. Их всего два. И в 2023 году Центр компетенции планирует продолжить начатое уже сотрудничество с Белоруссией, странами Центральной Азии, включая Таджикистан, Узбекистан, с другими странами, включая Южноафриканскую республику, в области гармонизации подходов, классификации запасов полезных ископаемых и развития экспертного сообщества на фундаменте РКО. По просьбе бюро Центр разрабатывает дополнительное руководство по требованиям компетентным лицам, которое будет отвечать региональным и национальным требованиям и способствовать гармонизации между профессиональными организациями различных стран для содействия и классификаций, для содействия широкому продвижению UNECE. И это тоже та работа, которая предполагалась вчера вот группа Сигурда, и мы видим, что эта работа делается и производится уже сегодня в рамках центров компетенции. И это тоже, на мой взгляд, надо учитывать. Сегодня я буду говорить немного по инициированию работы по закачке и хранению СО2. Для инициации документа кейс-стадии. Также планируется продолжить работу по подготовке правил оценки индекса чистой энергии в рамках UNRMS для применения принципов ESG для оценки энергетических проектов. Ну и, конечно, приоритетное внимание будет уделяться сотрудничеству ЕЭК ООН и Совета по международным стандартам отчетности устойчивого развития, о которых мы здесь много говорим. Предполагается продолжить практику приглашения экспертов в бюро на различные конференции и форумы. Так, Центр компетенции московский будет организатором воркшоп по продвижению UNECE на энергетическом форуме ООН в Бангкоке. И, собственно говоря, мы туда приглашаем всех желающих. Я думаю, будет очень интересная дискуссия. Таким образом, Московский центр компетенции ООН активно развивается и является последовательным и очень активным инструментом ЕЭК ООН в идее продвижения устойчивого и гармоничного управления природными ресурсами и использования для этого инструментов UNECE и UNRMS. Спасибо.
Thank you. Then, are there any other questions from the floor? Yeah. Charlotte.
Just a quick comment and clarification, just to say that the centers of excellence that we've heard about, they're all independent centers. None of them have any affiliation related to the UN or UNECE. I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Charlotte. So, yes, over here.
Well, I have a question to Mr. Neri about this competency, the center in Mexico, Latin America. What attracted my attention is you mentioned that you're running, that you're having a memorandum of understanding regarding waste to energy facilities in Mexico and Latin America. And this attracts my attention because of course, you're using waste and you convert it into energy. And at the same time, you can also recover the materials from the residues from bottom ash, metals, and also the mineral fractions. So do you foresee to include the UNECE? Is it included in the memorandum of understanding that you're running a case study? Do you want to make a pilot, let's just say, to test the application of the UNECE in order to produce, of course, energy, but also materials out of these residues? And thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. In fact, in one of these memorandums, MOUs, the main point is to include UNECE and UNRMS. In a specific project in one municipality, Los Cabos in Mexico, they are interested to test UNECE and UNRMS in order to identify the implications in the 2030 agenda properly. In this regard, this project, Waste to Energy, in this area, is part of this MOU, and will be very interesting to keep in touch, Ulrich, in order to understand and to test this study case. Yeah.